Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Author David Baldacci just published his new book, The Edge, the second installment of his 620-man series. I caught up with him to hear about his new book, as well as his journey from growing up in Virginia to becoming an international best-selling author.
Hello.
Hey, David Baldacci. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP again.
Absolutely. Good to be back. Thank you.
I think this is probably like the third time we've talked, I think. You keep coming back. Well, obviously, because WTOP is pretty much your hometown radio station, right?
It absolutely is, yes.
Do you know? So you've probably heard the phrase glass enclosed nerve center a few times.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Well, before we dive into the new book, remind our listeners why that is. You know, you remind them your Virginia roots. I mean, you've been here your whole life.
Yeah, so I was born in Richmond. I moved up to the DC area in the mid-'80s to practice law. And I've lived up here ever since, and definitely have listened to WTP for decades.
Yeah. Raised in Richmond. You went to VCU and to UVA Law School, up to DC, like you said, for law, and never looked back. You've always so we love celebrating your stuff, but obviously you're a #1 best-selling, internationally acclaimed author. But I love setting the roots here for the hometown hero stuff. Well, cool. Well, let's tell everybody the reason we're talking. We're talking about your new book, The Edge. It just came out, I think. It's the second book in your 620-man series, which I think the first one came out last year, I think. So what was it about the character Travis that made you want to revisit him?
Yeah, so Travis Devine he's an unusual character, a former Army Ranger who left the Army under a cloud and felt a lot of guilt for what happened there. He loved the Army, wanted to spend his entire career there, but something really bad happened. And so he got his MBA and started working on Wall Street in New York as penance, because he hated that life. It's the exact opposite of how he wanted to spend his life. It's almost like he's put himself in prison. And he got involved in a murder mystery in New York. A coworker of his was killed. And he got an offer from a guy who was a retired two-star who runs a little clandestine agency at DHS. And he says, I know what you did in the Army, so I'll give you a choice. You can either go to Leavenworth and spend the rest of your life in the stockade there, or you can come and work for me. So Devine decides to go work with him. So he solves the mystery that he's confronted with in the 620-man. And that title comes from the train he would take in from Westchester County every morning into Wall Street. And that moniker sort of stuck. Now in The Edge, he gets dropped into coastal rural Maine. A woman up there named Jenny Silkwell, who is from that town. Her father was a senator and also an Army icon who now has Alzheimer's. She worked for the CIA, and her body was found floating in the Atlantic Ocean off the Maine coast. Now, he has to go up there, Devine has to go up there and figure out, okay, was she killed because she worked for CIA, and did someone torture her and get secrets from her that we have to be worried about? Or is it something to do with her hometown, her past in Putnam, Maine, that caused her death? So his job is to interview everybody, work with the local police, and figure out who killed Jenny Silkwell and why.
Awesome. Sounds gripping again, as usual. So if there's our listeners, let's sort of take it both sides of the coin. If there's listeners that read, the original 620-man installment, what elements of this will that will be familiar that they'll love, or also on the other flip side, if people missed the first one, can they pick this up, or do you recommend maybe reading both in order?
Yeah, my publisher would always say you have to read my entire body of work to really enjoy any of my books.
Exactly.
But I'm not going to say that. I always, in the very beginning of a novel, of a series, I'll give you like a couple of paragraphs catch up, cheat sheet about, okay, here's who this person is and here's how he got here. So you can follow along even if you haven't read the 620-man. So you'll see, his training as a combat veteran, an Army Ranger, suits him really well up in Maine. He's going to need a lot of that skill set. But you'll also see sort of a softer side of Travis Devine in this book. One of the people he works with, Jenny Silkwell's younger sister, had a very traumatic event that happened to her years ago, and it has paralyzed her in her life. She can't really move forward or backward. She's tied to this town, even though she doesn't really want to be. And he really tries to help her because he feels empathy for her, and he's trying to get her through a very difficult period of time. And what happened to her and what the case he's investigating up there now sort of crossed the train lines at some point too. So you'll see both the hard side and the soft side of Travis Devine in this novel.
Fantastic. Well, it's you always keep them going. And by the way, is it out now or is it coming out soon?
No, it just came out Tuesday. So yeah, it's out on the shelves.
Okay, cool. Well, tell us why it's a good holiday gift, or maybe if you're traveling for Christmas, why it's one of those good ones. Maybe pick up in the airport bookstore and read on the plane. I don't know. Sell it on why it's timely this time of year to pick up.
It is. Well, it's definitely about it's a book about redemption, which the holiday season often tends to be. And it's a book about family, which holidays are often to be. And it's about families that have suffered loss, which unfortunately every family's had to do that. But it's also a really fast read. It's very compulsive. And most people who read this book have read it in 2 nights. And so if you're on a plane somewhere, that'd be great for you. It's also, I sold the series to Netflix about 6 months ago. They're going to make it into a series of movies. They love Travis Devine. They're just calling him like the American James Bond. Instead of a martini and a tux, he's got a Glock and a lunch pail.
A
So
Glock and a lunch pail.
yeah, so that'll be fun to see him on the small screen on the streaming platform. But it's just a really compelling story. I think once you pick up the book and start reading the first page, you're not going to put it down.
Well, congrats on selling it to Netflix. Is there anything else in the work for maybe any of your other series? You've had famous characters with the Will Roby series. I think that's what we interviewed you for the first time we spoke, and then the second time we spoke, I think it was for the Amos Decker, the Memory Man series. So, any traction with Netflix with them as well?
Both. So I've sold the Amos Decker series and I've sold the Atlee Pine series, my female FBI agent, both of those to Amazon Studios. They both have showrunners and writers attached. And now that the strikes are over, they're going full bore on all three series.
So you're kind of you've been kind of sidetracked by the strikes. But that you sold them before the strikes, but now things are ramping back up. Now we can see all three of those series soon too. That's great.
Absolutely, yeah. Everybody's really excited about them.
What about Will Roby? What are we gonna do to sell him a show, man?
You know what? I'm gonna keep hammering away at that. And I think the more traction you get with other series, all of a sudden they start coming back. More, sir, please, more.
Thanks, and quoting Oliver there. Nice.
That's
Hey,
right.
speaking of which, I don't think we've ever talked about this in our previous interviews, but since you mentioned the Netflix and the Amazon series, what current TV shows or past ones do you typically watch?
So we're catching up on Stranger Things. I know everybody's seen it. We're just bearing down to the end of that. We finished Ted Lasso. We found a series on Netflix called Lydia Poet, which is a woman set in the early 1900s in Italy. Who wants to be a lawyer. She's a member of the bar, and unfortunately, Italy would not allow women to practice before the bar back then. It's incredibly well done. The actor who plays the lead role, Lydia Poet, is just amazing. It's set in Turin. I'm Italian American, so I have, definitely a connection to Italy, but it's really a terrific series. And I don't binge a whole lot of television, but I like shows that really grab me like that and take me to a place I haven't been before. So we're really into that one, and looking forward to finishing up definitely Stranger Things.
I love it. How about movies? Either now or all timer. What's your go-to? And you can give me a comedy or a drama. It don't matter.
I always tell people if you want to see a great film, and I encourage my kids to watch it, even though they don't really get into that stuff, it's Chinatown.
Oh
One
my
of the,
God, one of my favorites.
yeah, one of the best screenplays ever written and one of the best movies ever. And I said, the plot's complicated. I tell it, it's all about water and money. That's all you have to keep in mind. And then the rest of it, just enjoy.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the reason that Robert Town's script is so good is it's the way it peels back the layers, and you almost have to know the ending. I mean, it's so tragic and horrific, the ending, the twist. But I tell people you almost have to watch it again, knowing the ending, to see how geniusly that it's all set up. All the little breadcrumbs. It's amazing.
It's a house of cards, incredibly well built.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And basically inspired the whole plot of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, except for it's the highway system, except for water and power. People go do those parallels.
Yeah.
Hey, I guess to round it out, how about music? What do you listen to? What are your tunes?
Yeah, so I'm in this book. You'll find that Travis Sabine is a big fan of Janis Joplin, as am I. So
Okay.
when I was growing up, I think the first album. I'm a lot older than you. My first album was Three Dog Night, and but Janis
Nice.
Joplin, The Doors, Jimi Hendrix, those are songs, lyrics that really spoke to me. They all wrote most of their songs in the 60s, when we had this country was falling apart at the seams, the Vietnam War was going hot and heavy, and those lyrics really spoke to me, and they were unique talents. And I enjoy music a lot, lots of different stuff. My kids are into all sorts of stuff that I have no idea about, but I do enjoy listening to music, and it's part of my life too.
Wow, Three Dog Night. David Baldacci was a bullfrog.
That's right. How about that? We all were back then.
Yeah, right. Oh, are you kidding me? I love Three Dog Night. We've interviewed them too before. That stuff is timeless. Never been to Spain. All that stuff's great. That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So, hey, what you mentioned listening to them growing up. How about literature wise? Like, what did you read growing up, or even now? Like, what other books really do it for you?
So growing up, I read lots of cool, I love Sherlock Holmes. I love Agatha Christie. I read bios. They were this biography series when I was a little kid. It wrote biographies of famous people, but only about their childhood. So the book ended when they actually got famous. So I would read about, Thomas Edison and the Ringling Brothers and all these people who had really accomplished a lot in their lives, but I only read about them when they were kids, which really connected with me as a kid because that's the age I was as well. So these days I read everything. Right now I'm reading a British mystery by Anne Cleves. I'm reading a book set in 1940, the Easy Rawlins series by Walter Mosley. And I'm reading a book about oceanography called The Underworld by Susan Casey that talks about the fact that we know more about the planet Mars than we do about the Pacific Ocean. So, books are great. They can take you everywhere.
They really are. And I didn't know we would be sort of hitting your TV and your movies and your music and books. But while we're at it, let me round it out with sports, because I think in a previous interview, I don't know if they were the Commanders yet, probably not, but the now Commanders, the Washington football team, I guess we'll say. Last time you said it seemed that the memories of Joe Gibbs and the Hogs, you didn't even think Amos Decker with his perfect memory could remember that far back. But now, hey, thankfully now, since the last time we spoke, Dan Snyder is finally gone. I mean, not much different results yet, but I'm holding out hope for the future. What do you think?
I am too. And I have to say that we've been looking for a franchise quarterback for forever. And I think maybe we might have him. You
Think
know,
Sam Howell, you think? Yeah, he's looking great lately, last couple weeks.
well, he's got poise in the pocket. He doesn't get rattled. He extends plays. He makes something out of nothing. He's got a cannon for an arm. Yeah, he had some interceptions, but the guy's really his first full year being a starter. So cut him some slack. He's tough. He can run the ball when he needs to, and he seems like a leader in the pocket. And those are things we haven't had for a hell of a long time. So I'll take it, man. I will take it.
Me too. I mean, yeah, like the last year or two, the Taylor Heineke was like a fun underdog rags to riches Rocky story, but obviously not a long time answer. So the Sam Howell, yeah, and I wasn't sure beginning of this year but I think mostly he was just getting destroyed. Our line was not protecting him at all. I thought he was going to get broken, like
Yeah.
what was it, Patrick Ramsey or something years ago. But
But you know what? You give the guy a little bit of time, and he
yeah,
finds the people open, and he's got. I think he's leading the league right now in passing yardage, and he's right up there with touchdown passes. So hey,
yeah. No, the last couple of weeks he's really proved himself.
yeah.
So hopefully they found something. Even if I'm it'll probably be Rivera's and squad's last year coaching. I would imagine the new owners would want Josh Harris and Magic Johnson are going to probably want to blow the whole thing up and start over. At least you can kind of read the tea leaves when they got rid of Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I think they're just kind of selling off and getting draft picks and that kind of thing. But rebuilding time is always fun.
Well, there's going to be a new sheriff in town next year, I think, too. So,
Absolutely. Well, before I appreciate you wide ranging this is the David Baldacci's all of his favorite things in pop culture interview apparently, but let's talk about on a serious note. Your wife and you founded, it's the Wish You Well Foundation. Tell us about it.
yeah, so we fund literacy programs and initiatives across the country. This is our 23rd year. I don't know how many programs we've funded over the years, 100,000. And our goal is to eradicate illiteracy in the U.S. Reading will determine, how well you're going to do economically and how well your family's going to do and whether you can realize your potential. And it's also tied to a lot of our social ills, everything from poverty to hunger to homelessness to crime. You eradicate illiteracy, a lot of that goes completely away. So every dollar you put into literacy, you get $10,000 in return as a society. So it's a great investment. And we funded a huge number of programs during the pandemic because a lot of funding sources for these programs ended because a lot of corporations were like, oh my God, our business is gone. So we're not going to give you any money. Sorry. And we just finished another funding round for programs. I think we funded over 100 programs. And we're going to continue to do so because I know that if we can turn literacy around in this country, we're going to have a much better place for all of us to live.
Awesome. And then on a similar note, you're partnering with Feeding America too, right? The Feeding Body and Mind Initiative. What's that about?
Yeah, so they have this huge network of food banks across the country. So when I go out on tour, I send these boxes, and the boxes collect for my fans, they donate new and gently used books, and we pay to have those boxes shipped to food banks around the country. If you're food challenged, you're probably literacy challenged as well. So people get to take home not only food from the food banks, but books that have been donated. So you fill up a house with books, I think good things will definitely happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of, rooms filled with books, sort of as we wind down this interview, I'm curious. When I was reading Stephen King's On Writing a couple, I don't know, a year or two ago, and I remember him saying, his setup, and he has to have his writing desk in a certain part of the room and a certain amount of quiet time, or different authors do different things. Some authors don't eat any meals; they force themselves to write a certain amount of pages before they eat, or whatever. Like, I'm always curious different authors' approaches. But what about for you? Do you have to write in a certain room at a certain time or anything like that?
I'm a planes, trains, and automobile kind of guy. The only perfect place for me to write is in my head. If everything's set in my head, I can write anywhere. There's a little Greek deli, Plaka, near my office in Northern Virginia, and I go there a lot. I sit at the back table, and I've written a lot of great stuff there. I go there so often they have actually put a plaque on the wall that says David Baldacci's remote office.
What town in Virginia?
In Vienna.
In Vienna, Virginia. It's called Plaka.
Plaka Grill. Yeah, it's right off on Lawyers Avenue, Lawyers Road. And people come by all the time to see if I'm going to be there.
That's great. And now they have a plaka of you on the wall, it sounds like.
They do.
Oh, that's great. What's your go-to order there then? Is it a certain sandwich or something?
I do. I love the chicken souvlaki dinner with rice and salad, but I have to tell you that their fries are so addictive that they can be dangerous. So, tread carefully, my friend.
Nice. And I appreciate the planes, trains, automobile shout out. I mean, it's around Thanksgiving holiday time. So, you know what I mean? That's the great Steve Martin, John Candy. That's one of the great Thanksgiving travel movies ever.
It is, absolutely is.
I really, really appreciate you joining us. Final seconds, final question, I promise, because you've been generous with your time. Just big picturing it, like your books have been published in over 45 languages and over 80 countries. I think you've sold over 150 million copies worldwide. Like, how do you stay hungry and not complacent? Or do you ever feel like you're going to hang it up? How do you just keep the creative juices going, even though, you've basically been to the mountaintop multiple times and sold multiple shows to Netflix? I mean, it seems like you could just, hang your hat on the career already, but, how do you keep the drive going?
I remember the guy who wrote the screenplay for Absolute Power, Bill Goldman. He won 2 Academy Awards. And he gave me some good advice a long time ago. He said, the first time you think you know what you're doing as a writer is when you've lost the edge that allows you to actually be a writer. And my greatest fear, he told me, is that somebody's gonna realize one day I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So I think that fear is a great antidote to complacency. So you sit down in front of this computer or a piece of paper and you think, I have no idea what I'm doing. I better focus and bring everything I have to this because people are going to find out I'm a total fraud. So that's what I do.
I really like how you mentioned William Goldman as Bill Goldman, who wrote Absolute Power, which is absolutely true. But we can't bury the lead. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Marathon Man, All the President's Men, Misery, The Princess Bride. Like, it's ridiculous, William. Thanks for William Goldman there. And we talked Robert Town, Chinatown. See, if you can't tell, this is when my coffee kicks in and I get all juiced up talking these old movies. So thanks for those.
I love it, man. I love talking about this stuff too, and I'm glad you're into it as well because it rocks my world, makes my world go round.
Do you have a favorite movie of all time, or I already asked you Chinatown? But how about a comedy?
Chinatown was up there, so I would think I'm a big Cary Grant fan.
Oh yeah,
and he and Katharine Hepburn were in a slapstick comedy in the 1940 called Bringing a Baby, when it was the baby was a leopard.
Yeah, exactly. I can't give you anything but love, baby. And I don't want to be that guy, but it was actually 1938 was Bringing Up Baby. Howard Hawks. 1940, you're thinking Cary Grant. You're thinking His Girl Friday with Cary Grant and Howard Hawks. Yeah.
Rosalind Russell.
Rosalind Russell, also one of the great movies. Man, as a 1-2 punch, damn, now that I'm thinking about it, he did Philadelphia Story with Hepburn and Jimmy Stewart in 40 as well. So, man, talk about a three all-time rom-com screwballs and stuff all in a row. Man.
Yeah, and have you ever watched 20th Century with Carole Lombard? And that is probably the top screwball comedy of all time.
Oh, 20, amazing. And Lombard, what else was To Be or Not to Be was Lombard as well. Didn't she die early in like a plane crash, I believe?
1942, they crashed to a mountain in Nevada.
Oh my gosh! But the stuff that she left behind with, Jack Benny and the rest, man, it's amazing, man. I could talk all day with you about this. I love it, but we won't keep you. But I appreciate I appreciate all the time, and I guess it's your third time calling in. Thanks for always coming back on TOP.
No, I enjoy it. You guys are awesome. Love you.
Awesome. Right back at you. Again, everyone, is David Baldacci. It is The Edge, the second book in his 620-man series. Pick it up for the holidays as a gift for someone or for yourself. Hey, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.